Welcome to PodcastEd, the podcast for higher education options. Hi, I'm your host, Leslie Heimbaugh, and with me today is Peyton Gorham and Tyler Coleman. They're fellow Central Penn students. We're all corporate communication majors. Peyton and Tyler are currently primarily online students, and I happen to be a mix of online and on campus. So today we're going to talk about the pros and cons of the online versus the on-campus college experience. Hopefully we'll provide some food for thought for students who are trying to make this decision. In our first segment, we're planning on talking about the pros and cons of studying online. The second segment will feature the pros and cons of studying on campus, and our third segment will discuss some questions that you should consider before choosing the path that's right for you. I want to be clear that our list is not exhaustive. You must do your own research for your particular goals. So we'll jump right in here with the online pros and cons. And we'll start right off with the pros of an online college education. So, I don't know, Tyler, would you like to talk a little bit about what you like going to school online?
Well, one of the biggest things that I like about going online is the flexibility. Working full-time and trying to go to school at the same time is very difficult. So having to find classes that I would take on campus would make it even more difficult with working 5 days a week.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, I mean, taking them online means I can sit down and do the work whenever I have time, and it's not really a set schedule. It's whenever you find the time and you're most comfortable doing it.
That's awesome. How about you, Peyton? What do you think about that?
It's kind of the same thing. I work full-time, so it's not really easy to get onto the actual campus.
Okay. Another plus I can see is that there's zero commute for the online student and many degree options. In my research, I found that the cost is generally a little lower, but sometimes the money you'll save will be on room and board and commuting costs. Sometimes you can complete the program faster, and that could put you into the workforce a little sooner. People who tend to do online college are often a driven group of people, and the people who stick with it are the kinds of people you want in your professional network because they are people that can manage their time well and they can keep moving. What do you think about that?
I would definitely agree. One point that you made about you would save money on room and board. I was just thinking about this the other day. For students who go online, generally means that they work full-time. So you're either paying bills, say, for your own apartment or house, and that could definitely factor in. Now, maybe it would not cost as much as living on campus, but it still definitely could cost a pretty penny.
Yes. Peyton, how do you feel about your writing and communicating in general when you're working online? Do you think your skills are better online, or do you think there's a difference to having an on-campus class?
I think it definitely helps you because there is a lot more writing involved. Like, you have discussion boards, and you write a lot of essays for stuff that would probably be discussed in class vocally.
Mm-hmm. I've learned that online classes can be very democratic, especially for people who don't love to speak up. It's really hard for one person to dominate the conversation when everybody is required to speak, and you're often speaking via, typing, so you don't have to worry about, how you sound, or if you have a chance to edit your work and you don't run on and on. So it's a good vehicle for people who don't really like speaking in public.
And that's definitely something that you really see in the online discussion boards.
Yes.
Because if someone doesn't agree with somebody else's discussion post, they're definitely going to say it in a polite way.
That's right.
Yeah, you have to be very careful about what you're saying, too.
Yes, absolutely. Well, it's in writing forever then. Yeah. Now we're going to sort of slide into the cons of some of college education online. One thing is you'll need to be very highly motivated and self-directed. Do either of you have trouble struggling with procrastination?
I'm a very big procrastinator, and it does not help.
Yeah. Aw.
It makes you work under pressure because you still need to meet your deadlines, but I don't recommend it.
Yeah, absolutely. How about you, Tyler?
Yeah, I definitely procrastinate. And it's funny, I've actually, talking to other students, I've heard them say, oh, well, I do better under procrastination, because when you're doing it last minute, you're kind of being forced to come out with your best work.
Yeah. So time management can really be an issue for the online student. How do you feel about having limited time with professors and peers? Is that a plus or a minus for you?
I think it can be both. I've had experiences where if you try to get a hold of a professor, they could take days to answer back. And I've also had experiences where they could answer you back within the next hour.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
it all depends on the professor.
How about you, Peyton?
It's the same thing. I've had professors that have taken me a very long time to hear back from them. And usually you'll learn that in the first week or two of working with a professor. But then some professors are really good at the online format and they'll get back to you in the same day.
Yeah.
And you'll get to know that, and then you'll know how often you just speak to them.
Yes.
And then some are also better at setting up their online class than others.
I find you might have to send a couple prompts to make sure people understand that it's urgent that you get the answer to that question so you can keep moving. Do you find that it's hard to develop relationships with your professors online?
No, not necessarily.
Yeah, I've had great experience with. I feel like I still know them very well. How about you, Tyler?
Yeah, I have not had that problem.
Okay.
Sometimes I feel like I develop a better relationship with my professors online because I email a lot.
I think whenever you take a professor online and then whenever you actually meet them in person, it's kind of an exciting feeling like, oh, I've had you for how many semesters and I'm finally meeting you.
Yes. So how do you feel about not having peers to socialize with so much?
I think that can be a negative aspect to a certain degree.
Right.
Like I said, working full-time and being all online, sometimes I feel like I miss that aspect of living on campus and getting involved with different activities and stuff like that. So with this being one of the first classes that I've taken on campus, it definitely has a different feel to it. Just being in class and getting to meet some of the different students, I've kind of liked it compared to just taking all online. But again, it can be very difficult depending on the schedule.
Right. How about you, Peyton?
After talking to actually many of the students that we have in this class now, online and then coming to meet them in person, that was kind of nice. So I do miss dealing with other students, but sometimes it also helps me, I feel like, because I don't have that distraction.
Right. I get a real charge from hearing people talk and listening to what they have to say and finding out what they might be passionate about. I love finding that out. So, we talked a little bit about how you'll lose the campus experience, and it's possible that you may not have access to a library. Now, we're lucky here at Central Penn because there is a physical library associated with this school, and we're close by, and we're able to, to take advantage of the facilities whenever we, if we try to get here a little bit early some nights. So that's good. You won't be joining clubs or extracurriculars most likely because it's tricky, and you have to have the right technology to do this work. Was that a barrier for either of you to make sure you had the right kind of computer for the job?
Not for me. The computer I've had the entire time since I've been in school. I haven't had any issues, which has been good.
Good. How about you, Peyton?
I have switched over computers because my one died at one point. And so then I had to go to my sister's house and use her computer, which it can be a struggle, but you want to just make sure you have some kind of backup for if it would not work.
All right. Well, we our peers and professors might not be as good at communicating with us. Sometimes you'll miss the body language and the social cues that you get by seeing a person's reaction. People sometimes think online learning is easier and less reputable on campus, but I don't find that to be true at all. Your major may not be available online, but most things are. I've had pretty good luck with finding. The one thing I want to be sure to mention is that you'll need to be aware of online education scams because there are places that will take advantage of you, and the red flags include a lack of a degree or a lack of accreditation, super short programs, and things like that. So, all right, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll talk about the pros and cons of getting an on-campus education.
Hi, this is Tyler Coleman, and you are listening to PodcastEd, the podcast for a higher education option.
Welcome back to PodcastEd, the podcast for higher education options. I'm your host, Leslie Heimbaugh, and I have with me here Peyton Gorham and Tyler Coleman. During this segment, we're going to discuss the pros and cons of getting an on-campus education. We'll start out with the pros of the on-campus education. Now, I have to say I am a big fan of the on-campus education. I really love the collaborative environment. I feel like a lot of instructors are more used to this format, and so that it's something that comes very naturally to most instructors. I feel like they can gauge students better, and I feel like there's some social benefits, especially for younger people my age. I happen to be 55. It's not so the roommates situation is not going to be something I'm going to encounter, but for younger people, I think it's a great plan because the roommates can encourage you to learn negotiating skills and to how to exist in different relationships with people you're not necessarily familiar with. So what do you think, Tyler, of of some of those points that I've just brought up so far?
Well, I would definitely agree. One of the biggest things is that whenever you take a class on campus and you get to interact with people, it is definitely a lot different than talking to somebody through text online, whether you're talking to a professor or other classmates. Like you had pointed out in the last segment, it definitely gives you a feeling of what they're passionate about or how they feel about a certain subject.
Yes, absolutely. How about you, Peyton?
And just kind of like Tyler said, people can be very different when you meet them in person.
Right.
And it's exciting to meet them in person.
Right.
But it's actually nice to get to collaborate with actual people.
I love that part too.
Before I started working full time, a lot of my classes were actually in class. And I really liked that because then not only that, but I can work with a professor and talk to him when I'm in class.
Exactly. You can get sort of instant gratification for the things you're concerned about and, not have to wonder how you should do a project. Depending on the professor, you might have more structure and discipline in the on-campus option. You'll have access to facilities such as the computer lab, the library, the theater, the writing center, and maybe even a gym. I love the idea that you could have some cross-cultural experiences, meet people that don't have a background that's similar to yours at all, and you could, maybe learn a little bit about another culture. Boy, we are speeding right through this section. Tell me how you feel about the cross-cultural experience. Do you have a lot of exposure to people of other cultures? Where you work?
Through my work, yes. There are tons of people from all different backgrounds, whether it's Asian or actually one of the other processing assistants that I work with is from the Philippines.
Oh, wow.
And she has kind of been teaching me Tagalog language, which is interesting.
That's nice.
And it's fun to work with people of other backgrounds because you learn a whole lot about where they come from and what they've been through. Yeah, I just met a girl the other day from Ghana, and the struggles that she has gone through, to be here. It's pretty amazing, and she's a very determined student, and she's doing a beautiful job, and it's really inspiring to see somebody want to succeed so much, and because we have so many great opportunities here. Let's go into a few of the cons of the on-campus education. Some say it's harder to cater to the individual learning styles because class sizes may be large. It may be harder to set a correct pace for learners in an on-campus situation. Now, since the two of you are big fans of the online education, I wanted to talk a little bit more about people who don't enjoy face-to-face communication or, the student engagement. Talk a little bit more, Tyler, about how you feel about engaging with other students. Well, engaging with other students can become difficult at times, especially when you're in a class and you get put into group projects.
Right.
There can be people who might not want to pick up their part or people who don't really care.
Yeah.
And you see that right away with certain people who kind of have the wrong attitude. And you question yourself, if that's how you want to be, why are you really here?
Yeah, exactly. How about you, Peyton?
It's the same thing, especially if you're put in a group project online. It's definitely not easy to do. So usually you don't see them when you're in an online class, which is a good thing.
Right.
And then when you're on campus, you definitely can gauge who you're working with a lot better.
Right. In your research on online versus on campus, did you find, but maybe you would think back to the time before you made a decision about where you were going to go to school. Did you find that one option or the other was more or less expensive for you? How about you, Tyler?
I don't really think that one was more expensive than the other one. I think it was more based off of how I thought I would learn better and the type of feeling that I would get, whether it was just sitting at home on my couch doing work or if it would actually be sitting in the classroom doing it hands-on. Right. How about you, Peyton? Did you have any experience with that?
Mine wasn't so much, just like Tyler wasn't so much as the expense. It was more of I wanted the accreditation.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make sure that it was a school that jobs would appreciate.
Yes.
Because even though some of the online schools do have an accreditation, doesn't mean a job's going to appreciate their degree.
Well, I understand here that Central Penn has a great relationship with a lot of employers that specifically are coming here to look for people who are graduating from these programs. So this is a very comforting place to be if you're looking for a job. That you're going to have some support at that time. How about if you were doing an on-campus education, do you think it would be harder to find a time alone to study because of all the activities on campus, Tyler?
It could be, depending on whether you're very social and you make friends with a lot of people. Living with roommates can be very distracting because you might be trying to sit there and study or work on an assignment, and they might be sitting there trying to watch TV or play video games, something like that.
Yeah. So those negotiating skills would really come in handy.
Yes.
How about you, Peyton?
It's the same thing. I definitely enjoy being able to go to Starbucks or go to Dunkin' Donuts and sit alone and be in the quiet.
Yes.
Which, when you're on campus, you don't always get that.
Right.
From my experiences, people will usually be around you somewhere talking.
Right. So far, would you say your online education is going well, like it's going as you expected?
I would say yes. Through my experience, like when I started at Harrisburg Area Community College, when I was taking classes on campus, we would go Monday, Wednesday, Friday was what my schedule was. And say Monday, they might say, okay, here's an assignment. You have to have it brought in by Wednesday.
Right.
The biggest thing I like now about being all online is, okay, you may have a discussion board due Wednesday night, but everything else, hey, take your time, do it. It's not due till Sunday night.
Exactly. How about you, Peyton?
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay. I mean, definitely when we were talking about procrastination, if you are a procrastinator, although it's not a good thing to do, the knowing when everything's due,
yes,
weeks ahead of time is a really good thing.
Yeah, I like that option too. Okay, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back to pose some questions that students may want to ask to figure out whether getting a degree online or on campus or a combination of the two will work best for them. You're listening to Podcast Ed with Leslie Heimbaugh, Peyton Gorham, and Tyler Coleman. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Peyton Gorham, and you're listening to Podcast Ed, the podcast for higher education.
Welcome back to PodcastEd, the podcast for higher education. I'm your host, Leslie Heimbaugh, and with me today is Peyton Gorham and Tyler Coleman. Let's talk about the questions that students could be asking themselves and their prospective educational institutions before they make a commitment to a college. So what kind of degree do you want? Does the college offer your desired degree? Is it a degree that would benefit from hands-on learning, such as nursing, physical therapy, radiology, massage, or personal training? Those are things that you could not do for the most part in an online college because you really need that hands-on. Or is it a degree like accounting, marketing, etc., that could be adopted easily online? Is the college accredited? The school should have at least a regional accreditation, maybe even a national accreditation. So let's talk a little bit about our learning styles. These are things that people have to consider before they make a decision. Tyler, what's your learning style? Do you learn better online or in person?
I think it's a little bit of both, if that makes sense, because doing it online, I can do it at my own pace, but when you do it in class, you have the professor there. You have the resources that you need if problems were to arise, and you could probably asking your professor real quick in class a question, it could get answered a lot faster than it would through email.
Yes. Peyton, what do you think? What's your style of learning?
I think that all depends on the degree that you're going for.
Okay.
Like you were talking about what kind of degree do you want? When I first started, I was going for radiology. And so then I wanted to be in class as much as possible because I was taking a lot of sciences.
Right.
And so that's a lot of things that it is hands-on.
Right.
And then now being in corporate communications, it's a lot easier to do the online experience.
Good.
But this class, like broadcasting, you definitely want to be in the classroom trying to learn it.
Yes. There's really no way you could learn this stuff from, sitting at home. Some of the learning styles that I've learned about are people who see things well, who are good readers. Online is great for them. People who require a hands-on, I'm more of a hands-on person. I like to see things for myself. An actual classroom might be better for them. And if you're a really good listener, either format will probably work pretty well for you. This is, I thought, a really important question. Are the programs challenging and rigorous enough? Because school is so expensive, you want to be sure that it's actually preparing you for a career. And this is one time where easy may not be the best thing. I'd love to find out your opinion on this question. Will employers hire you with an online degree? Has anybody done any research on whether or not employers if they care whether your degree was online or on campus? Tyler?
Most employers might prefer you to have an on-campus degree just because it's more interacting with people and it shows that what type of skills you can provide.
Right.
But it may not matter depending on what type of field you're looking to get into.
Right.
So just like here at Central Penn, you can do the internships.
Right.
And it doesn't matter whether it's on campus or online. You know, you get that experience working out in the workforce.
Right. I have a note to remind people to ask their admission staff at the different colleges to share feedback on their placement rates and how, what kind of education garnered that type of position. Peyton, what would you say your time commitment is for your online studies? How long do you spend each week on homework?
I don't have an exact estimate. I decide depending on what the assignment is.
Right. Okay.
So a lot of them have a word count. If it's 500 words, I can usually spend a little less time with it than if it's 2,000 words.
Right. In the last segment, we touched a little bit on the tendency to procrastinate, and we want to make it clear that we are not recommending procrastination in any way. That we sometimes we do feel like we do our best work when we cram it in at the last minute. I found a little statistic that said, for online students, the average student can only focus and stay on a task for about 3 minutes before being interrupted by some form of media, and that's according to the blog brazen.com. If you're a person who sees a cat video and it leads you on a path for 10 minutes of goofing off, online studying might be a little tough for you.
And I can see that as being a problem on campus too, because some people have a hard time focusing around other peers.
Right.
So it's the same thing as with technology as it is on campus. It all depends on your learning style.
Right. You might want to ask, what type of support does the student offer, or does the school offer its enrolled students? Is an online study group available? Will you have an advisor, and how easy will it be for you to stay in touch with, obviously with your professors? I wanted to mention, we've really covered the financial situation pretty well, but I wanted to point out that my experience has been that some grants don't pay as much for online classes, like the FIA grant, for example. They want you to take 50% of your classes on site, and it can be kind of a bummer to see, when you're going to take a load of classes and not get the full amount that you're eligible for. So that's one thing you want to look out for. This is really important. Does the degree include relevant certificates, or does it prepare you for licensure? So depending on what fields you're going to go into, fields like IT, it's been said that the certification is almost more important than the degree. So I found that interesting. Fields like nursing or education, you're going to need to be prepared for licensure. So you're going to have that big additional test once everything's all over. So you want to be sure that you're prepared for that.
Especially with nursing,
Yes.
because my sister's a nurse and they spend a lot on their license.
Yes, exactly. My daughter's going through that right now. She's going to graduate on Saturday, and then she'll have, actually the school is throwing in an additional 3 days of study to prepare them for the licensing test so that they'll be good and ready for it, because the school benefits too from the more people that pass that test. Does the university offer support for alumni? I thought this was really a good question too. Here at Central Penn, I know that they publish an alumni magazine, and I've done some extensive research looking for facts about things that happened in the past, and the alumni magazine is quite good here, and they really do a nice job trying to engage the alumni to stay involved and to make contributions to keep the school vibrant and everything. And career counseling would be a plus if you found out that you could get some help if you were struggling in a job, or maybe even down the road you found that you were ready for something else. The networking, obviously, it's going to help you in every aspect of your career, to either to make better contacts at the job you do have, or plan for the future and have contacts with people that you're going to come across later. And it's nice. It's really nice to stay connected, because it's good for the alumni to find out how the school is evolving and growing and changing. So, Tyler, why don't you tell me, just wrap this up a little bit in your own words for us. Tell us why you like, the choices that you've made.
I like the choices that I made because I think it fits me.
Right.
And that's what I'm concerned about. Whenever looking for whether you should take online or on campus, again, like we covered, it all depends on the person and their learning skills. So being on my own and living in an apartment, I have to work full time to pay my bills. So right now for me, online online is what works best. And if I have to take classes on campus, then you do what you have to do. But for the most part, for myself, I will stick with all online.
Great. Peyton, what do you think about that same question?
I definitely like the online experience just because I work full-time to pay for my schooling. So without working full-time, I would not be here right now.
Right.
And then it also works depending on what you do outside of work. Like I work with horses. Sometimes I train and give riding lessons. And that's all throughout the day or throughout the weekend or usually late nights, which is when I'd be able to get in for a night class. So that's just what works for me.
Right. I'm a huge fan of a combination of the two. I think I get so much out of the classes that I come here for, and I'm finding that I'm learning to be more disciplined and a better time manager with my classes that I do online. It's really forced me to set goals every week for myself and to hit those marks so that, I can have a little time to myself on Sunday. I mean, I find I'm spending quite a lot of time on homework, but it's because I think my age, I want to read everything that I get to read, and I want to get as much as I can out of this.
Well, I just want to make one more quick point. Being all online, like I said, you could sit down and do it whenever you want, but when you pretty much don't have a choice and you have to take an on-campus class, for example, if it's a Thursday night, you're not going to get your assignment until Thursday, so you have Friday, Saturday, Sunday to do it. So throughout the week, you're like, okay, well, I should probably sit down and get some of this other homework done so it doesn't all get put on last minute.
Well, that's going to wrap things up for us. I'm Leslie Heimbaugh for Peyton Gorham and Tyler Coleman. This has been PodcastEd, the podcast for higher education options. Thank you so much for joining us.